Marauder versus Warhammer. Now, this is going to be an interesting matchup because these are two of my favorite mechs. So absolutely, if we are exploring this idea of going head-to-head, I'm going to have to be really careful. I'm going to have to keep this tactical. We're going to build that checklist, and I'm not going to let favoritism sway one way or the other. So the past couple of Battletech vlogs, and we're going to look at some tanks. We're also going to get into the clans. We're looking head-to-head. Part of this exercise is talking about the different mechs, the different combinations. But this idea in Battletech where two mechs, they're part of a lance. It could be combined arms, but two mechs are going head-to-head. They're engaged. Tactically, they're engaged. Being able in that moment to build a checklist and say, what are the advantages of the mech? What are the disadvantages? And 7 out of 10 times, if one mech is going to win over the other, barring a lucky shot, it is Battletech, we're rolling the dice. Can we get that down to 6 or 5 out of 10? And if you find yourself undergunned or overgunned, how can we even those odds a little bit? Building that checklist. So in exploring the Warhammer versus Marauder. Now, at first glance, the two seem to be somewhat equal in that the primary tactica and their primary offense are going to be those dual PPCs. It's going to be an interesting slugfest because 2 versus 2, slight difference in heat sinks, but 2 versus 2 means the rate of fire. We don't want to trade shots back and forth. Any mech that is about equal at a certain range, given the ability to sustain fire, let's just say we're out in the open, covers a different story, elevation. If we're at medium range and we're not moving, this is just going to be back and forth. So it absolutely comes down to the dice at that moment. We need to look, first thing, how do we fix that? How do we gain a slight advantage when things are equal? Right now, just at PPC range, long range or medium range. Well, the Marauder has that autocannon, and that's matched rather nicely. So this idea, both with the Warhammer and the Marauder, you're going to fire a PPC, fire 2, maybe wait. Fire 1, fire 2. You're going to kind of look to manage that heat. When I need to really look at the heat for the Marauder, I can still get some shots down the table with that autocannon. Less damage, but that's a slight tipping point in terms of heat management and fire output. So the first thing that I'm looking to do with that Warhammer and to the Marauder as a similar extent, can I move in such a way? Now, the Battletech chart, damage chart, represents the fact that, yes, you have advanced targeting systems. You've got some heads-up display. Although in a campaign that I was playing, piloting an awesome mech, the Awesome is an awesome mech, I was short on some C-bills. The campaign didn't go very well. I had to make some decisions. I took a sensor hit. So in the narrative, in the role play, I was essentially down to iron sights, old school iron sights. But what that represents in Battletech is the fact that these machines, as big as they are moving around. They're very, very dynamic. It is a very fluid battlefield. Yes, the miniatures have some awesome poses, but they represent static figures. Things are moving around. So we represent the facing determines where you hit. Can I get to the left side? Can I torso twist? Can I move in such a way that rather than shooting straight onto that Warhammer or that Marauder, can I be hitting it on the left side or the right side? The idea being, can I knock out one of those arms? Can I crit and destroy the weapon, or can I blow the arm off? Because just that reduction in PPCs at range is going to be big. Okay, so now we start to close. And I think it's still about evenly matched. The Marauder has that autocannon, and it has the 2 lasers. Now, those medium lasers, slight disadvantage because of the location in the arms, arms being the weakest part of the mechs. If it gets blown off, you're not only down a PPC, you're down a medium laser. The Warhammer has a bunch of weapons, including the SRM, in the torso locations, left, right. It's a little more robust. So at that range, as we start to close, things are evenly matched, but damage spread is going to be important, and management of the damage spread, very, very important. Now when we get to close range, this is where the Warhammer has an advantage in that not so much the damage, with the other lasers and weapons, but in the fact that when things go to internals in a mech, if the Warhammer can go to internals on that Marauder and the Warhammer can get close enough. Now, as a Marauder player, am I going to let that happen? I'm going to try and backpedal. But look, there's a lot of unknowns. Are we out in an open? What's the hex map like? Is it city fight? Is it city tech? Are there other rules in play where, look, there's an objective and I need to stand and hold this objective so that Warhammer is going to close? I mean, there's a lot that we can't answer unless we're in that moment. We're in that battle. But if the Warhammer can break through to the Marauder and go to internals, the sheer number of weapons that they can fire and the spread of the missiles, it's almost irrelevant, the damage. If it goes to internal, that Marauder is going to fall apart pretty fast. So slight advantage or mid advantage to the Warhammer. So yes, 2 even mechs. I think the Marauder pulls ahead a little bit at range and rate of fire. If it can stay at that range, it's going to excel. The Warhammer can also dance at range, but it's going to want to close. At medium range, I think they're both somewhat similar. But it's going to come down to, I feel, can we blast those arms off? Can I remove one of those arms? And in removing an arm, that is a bigger blow to the Marauder, losing the PPC, the medium laser. Warhammer, you've lost that single PPC. Okay, turning it over to you guys in the comments. Warhammer versus Marauder. And just thinking of that, thinking of those optics, I want to run a command lance of all Marauders and a command lance or an assault lance of all Warhammers. Like, I want to do that for my next game. That would look amazing on the table.